What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Friday edition of Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quinones here. Don't forget to check us out on the YouTube channel at Rich Q on Q, our Friday show from our good friends over at Played Against Sports, $50 gift card for $40. You can use the Dick's cards. You can go to all New Jersey malls. Tell me you heard it right here on BYP. And again, we got a busy Friday, sprout out a lot of contact. And a lot of content. Our guy, Tony Cutillo, joins us at T Cutillo 23. He's all over the place, the Jigsaw Man. Sirius, Heat Ratio Sports, Rise and React Media. He's got his Christmas hat on. He's repping NC, a little North Catholic, and he's hoping, praying, and wishing that Santa doesn't leave a little coal under the tree this weekend, which means the Eagles spit the bit against the Dallas Cowboys. But I don't see that happening. What's going on, TC? How are you, brother?
What's up, Rich, man? I'm okay, man. I'm trying not to get blown away. Getting them last minute bacon done. Was baking with the wife this morning. A little quality time, bacon, some cakes and stuff. So, I still got the Christmas hat on. I'm like, let's just be in a festive mood. You know what I mean?
You got the Christmas hat on, and I got the hot toddy, so we're good to go.
There you go.
All right, so let's get into a little NFL. We'll kind of run through the gamut. Obviously, the news dropped in earlier in the week, which it's weird because with the Hurts injury, with the sprained shoulder and the throwing arm, that line goes from 1 to 3, jumps to 6, comes back down to 5. So obviously, right, it's a perfect example of Vegas knowing something that we didn't know. Let me ask you this first and foremost. His style of play, the fact that he's a scrambling quarterback, a running quarterback, right? Very athletic. We know he can throw from the pocket. We see the progressions. You can make the case he's the MVP of the National Football League. Is there a concern that his style of play is not going to be able to absorb the amount of hits that he takes or will take, say, over the course of a 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe even a decade-long career?
I'm back and forth on that. Because, he's not built, in my opinion, like one of those guys like we're talking about, like a Michael Vick or a Lamar Jackson. This dude's benching 600 something pounds, right? Yeah. He kind of reminds me more of a Steve McNair kind of mold where he's tough. And, even though he runs, he's kind of like a linebacker, man. I think his runs are more calculated than people are giving him credit for. I think this was just a bad spot. It's a weird game. It was cold. The Chicago Bears skiing the Eagles better than any other team this year. So they were kind of going through their motions and progressions as the game went along. So I have no problem about him, obviously, standing the test of time. But I will say one thing, and AJ Brown's at the same thing. I just wish he would slide a little more, right? So I just wish he would slide a little more.
And you're kind of seeing that with some of these younger quarterbacks. Daniel Jones has learned to do it. Trevor Lawrence has learned to do it. Burrow has to learn to do it. And then you mentioned Jalen Hurts. The line sitting right now, 4.5. That's got to be tough playing on the holidays, whether it's Thanksgiving or whether it's Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. 1 o'clock, got to get away with, okay? But the Birds kick off 4:25 against the Dallas Cowboys. So, listen, I think this is a game where even with Minshew under center, there's no panic. Like, I don't feel this is a couple years ago, right, when Carson Wentz goes down. And how about this for the irony? Carson Wentz, MVP-like season, tears up the knee, in comes the backup, Nick Foles, sexy Jesus. There you go, right? Now you've got the mustache coming into play. I think he can hold the fort down for a game or two. I really do, because I'm not sold on Dallas. If the Eagles can run the ball, which let's give Sanders a couple carries, right? You already know you've got some very good wide receivers. You know about the defense, the offensive line creating some holes, secondary, wall-to-wall Pro Bowl players. I think they're going to be okay tomorrow.
Yeah, I do too. Listen, I think the key was Dallas Goedert being active, right? People obviously his receiving skills, but his blocking ability that has really been excelled over the last couple of years. And the one thing you're going to see a different style of offense. The offense that the Eagles play is a Jalen Hurts offense.
Yeah,
right. We're not going to see that. Minshew's not going to throw the ball 70 yards down the field, but a lot of those tight end screens, which is why Goddard's going to be huge. And if you remember the last time Minshew played, who had the big game, it was Goddard, because he's going to deal more in the middle of that field. As those linebackers come up and they're trying to stop the run game, he's going to get open in that seam, man. So it's going to be a Goddard day for me.
Yeah, and listen, defensively, I mean, you look at the Dallas Cowboys and what they present offensively. I mean, they want to stop the bleeding. They need this game. Dak Prescott has not looked good over the last several weeks. He's thrown, an abundance amount of picks. The line looks a little shaky. They blew a big lead to Jacksonville. You would think they would come out a little pissed off, a little angry. They know this game is important because there's still, there's always the seeding involved, right? You still want to have some good momentum going forward. So I think this game is going to be a lot closer than people anticipate, but I can see the Eagles kind of with that late touchdown, maybe like a backdoor cover. It could be a 21-17. I like the Eagles to win the game, even though that wouldn't be covering at 4.5, but you get my point. I think the line is right where it should be, knowing that he's going to be the backup.
Yeah, when it was at 6, I was like, a little hesitant. I was like, all right, give me the points. But now that's 4.5. I don't have any issues with them covering this game. I really don't. I think that, you hit on it. Dallas right now has to find themselves because their identity should be Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott, but for some reason they want to continue to throw the ball numerous times, and Dak's just not that guy, right? I mean, shout out to Shady for calling him ass. That was tremendous.
But you know what? He's not a horrible quarterback.
No,
he's not.
No, he's not. But I think he's overrated. Can I say that? I think he's overrated.
Listen, he's got to be able to take this team deep into the playoffs because he's not immune to the criticism, right? Not when you're wearing the star on the helmet. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you saw last night, you got a high draft pick in Zach Wilson, and that kid might never touch the football again. So right. To me, I don't really subscribe to where somebody's drafted. I mean, sometimes you get the diamonds in the rough. Let me get your thoughts about last night. I mean, I thought the Jets should have benched him a while back. I thought he lost the locker room when they lost 7-3 against the Pats, and he threw for 77 yards. And basically he threw the defense under the bus. He wasn't holding himself accountable. Like for me, you sit up there. Yeah. I let the defense down offensively. I'm the leader. I'm under center. I touch the football the most. I'm the face of the franchise. I got to make plays. And he just turned around. He's like, nah, I didn't let him down. I mean, so from that point, I think you basically lost your teammates. And I did a spot earlier this morning that I threw it up on the YouTube channel. I mean, I think he's done in New York. I don't think there's no going back to him.
I 100% agree with you. This is a thing where he's going to have to go somewhere else, a la Jared Goff. And I don't even like Jared Goff that much, but he's not even as good as Jared Goff, right? This was a big slip up to me by Robert Saleh. I'm really not sure. And I love Saleh. I think he's a tremendous coach. It'd be different if you didn't have a studly defense on that team. Got veterans like CJ Mosley that are still playing for something, right? Because they're in the hunt. They were in the hunt, right? So you owe it to your defense, who has balled out this year, to at least give yourself the best opportunity to win. And that would have been with Joe Flacco and not Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, and think about what you just said, right?
I know
Flacco wants no parts of being out on the field, and it's unfortunate because White got hurt. The one game that Wilson was efficient was the Buffalo win. Yep. But you mentioned Saleh. Look, man, he's got to take some criticism. Look at last weekend. I mean, late, no timeouts, the waste of time. Like last night, and again, this is something I talked about this morning. Sometimes when a quarterback shot like that and they have zero confidence, you can't keep trotting him out there, man. You have to save him from himself. And I would have pulled the plug last night earlier. It is what it is. And then ultimately I would have pulled it. I wouldn't have started him anymore. And it's just unfortunate because Mike White got hurt and you realize Flacco doesn't want to be there. I
know.
I mean, then you sit there after the game and he turns around and he goes, we haven't seen the last of him. What are you talking about? And then today he made the comments. I mean, just to paraphrase, today he came out and said, they have confidence in everyone. And this is when he was asked about the future, for Zach Wilson. And I don't want to misskew it. He basically said, we're not going to quit on anybody. I have confidence in all of our guys. I mean, come on, man. The fan base is not stupid.
No,
they know that what's going on is a friggin' it's a travesty right now for a team that started really well, 7-4, now 7-8. How about Minnesota and the Giants? Where are you at with that line in that game?
I'll tell you what, man. I did a spot earlier this week, and I was talking Danny Jones, and how much I like the offense this week for the Giants from a fantasy perspective and from a betting perspective. Listen, I think the over and under that game is 48 right now, 48 and a half. We saw what Minnesota has not been on defense, which they used to be, but they're not this year. And listen, say what you want. I mean, you know, you're a New York guy, right? You know, and Danny Jones, he can be a serviceable quarterback. And shout out to Dable because, you know, you lose guys like Tony, Galladay's a bust, right? You lose Sterling Shepard for me was the best receiver on the team.
Yep.
You lose all these guys. And you got guys like Isaiah Hodgins, Richie James, right?
Yep.
And they're stepping up, man. Like there's still somebody throwing them that ball. So I think it's a mix, right? You know, we talked last week, you know, the jury's out. What do they do with Danny Jones next year? But just for this game, I think this is going to be some fireworks in this game. So I actually like that game from a betting and a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, listen, I mean, they've got to be able to throw the ball down the field. They're going to work Saquon. You know, it's just they're just void of talent. But to your point, if Indianapolis was able to move the ball like that, the Giants should be able. And you know, you shouldn't
all
really
match up
too much about conditions. Any other games that kind of stick out from a betting perspective, or any games you kind of are highlighting going into this weekend?
Yeah, well, I always, you know, from, you know, if people don't know, I'm kind of like I started this thing called the plus money prop train where I don't throw out these minus 140s and minus 150. So I'm a risk taker. So I go for these high over and under. So I'm looking at Seattle and KC right off the bat. You're talking about almost 50 points scored in that game. So I really like that game from a betting perspective. I talked about the Giants in the Minnesota game. I mean, certain things that I like in that game, you know, little gems, right? When you have a game like that, the high over and under, you know, the backup running back sometimes plays a part from a betting perspective. So look for Madison, in my opinion. I think he's plus 600 for anytime touchdown. I really like lines like that. So, but again, I will say watch weather. You know, I like the Cleveland game because the Saints have nobody playing, but the weather is going to be hellacious with winds. So again, we don't know what to expect there. And I'm intrigued, man, at certain games. I'm intrigued at this Washington San Francisco game, man. Like, you know, as much as the NLE or the NFC East is unbelievable. And you're right. And you have the Washington Commanders out there with 3 Pro Bowlers on that team. Right, Rich? I say this all the time. You know, I'm a big old school guy. So you give me Ron Rivera, you give me Jack Del Rio all day. You know, I'm going to put my trust in guys that have been in the trenches and have been able to coach. And he got these young kids balling. So I'm intrigued to see what that game turns out to be as well.
Yeah, I'm also looking at the line in that Pittsburgh and that Raiders game as well. It's about 2. And I don't know if there's going to be some, you know, sentiment because unfortunate passing of Franco Harris. And that's not where I was leaning. I just think that the Raiders, you know, you know, arguably one of the biggest gaps we've ever seen, right, in a game against the Patriots, and it fell in the Raiders' lap. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. And I know the listening and the viewing audience is probably like, come on, Rich, you brought this up 7 times. I'm going to bring it up again. On that last play where you have the draw play, Chandler Jones slips.
Yeah, I saw that.
Doesn't get up. He doesn't pursue the running back. If he does it, he's not at that spot to intercept the lateral. So
you're right. No, you're right.
Timing is everything. I wanted, when you mentioned Washington, I know you and I were going back and forth on Twitter because I said last week, I don't want to freaking hear crap about the officiating in the NFL. No, wait, I'll give you this, Tony. I'll give you this. Blatant, horrible calls. I get it. So we know that happens. I can go back years ago when the Giants played the Saints and a BS face mask. I can go back last year with the offsides with Lawrence. I can go back to the friggin' year your Eagles won the Super Bowl and they added a phantom second at the link for Elliott's field goal. I don't want to hear this nonsense. But look, I can't get over that game. How do you remedy this? What are you going to do? Are you going to replay every single solitary hanky?
That's the problem, man. Like you're really taking away a lot of luster from the game. I mean, it's tough because like for me, like I know we're talking football, but that's the one thing I hate about baseball, how long it takes for these replays. And I know people want to change the game in baseball and they want to speed up. Listen, if you don't like baseball, then just get out. Like it's part of the
Feel the same
game,
way.
man.
Feel the
And
same
I
way.
hate when you take away elements of a game in a national pastime. But you ask about the NFL, and I don't know how they fix it, Rich, but the thing that kills me is these are blatant misses. Like you said, I mean, it's like the dude's standing there. Like it's right in front of him.
And he
Like
got mugged. Yeah.
what are you looking at?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
if there's a way to where, these referees have like kind of like a penalty system where maybe they get dinged for the amount of calls that they miss, makes them more disciplined. I don't know what's going on, but it definitely, when you have this money element now, the way sports betting is blowing up, and you have partnerships with DraftKings and FanDuel, with NFL teams have boxes in their stadiums,
Sponsored
you
by.
better fix this because it's got a really bad vibe going on right now to everybody looking in.
So I interviewed Tim Donaghy years ago. I actually got him on. He did
Nice.
60-minute spot, and I got him on that following Monday. And it was a very good interview. And I don't usually toot the horn.
Nah, man, that's all. That's a great
it got
pull,
some
man.
nice press, but also he was fully transparent because I kept digging and digging and digging. And I brought up the NFL aspect, and he said there are certain sports that it's harder to, quote, throw the game, so to speak. The NBA, right? You're a hoops guy like I am. The NBA, I can miss a couple calls, and then all of a sudden it's the, quote, makeup call. NFL's a little more blatant, but I think it's because it's so much of that human element, and they want to try to get it right, or they over legislate. But I'm not throwing a flag in certain situations. I know people will say if you throw it in the first quarter, you throw it in the second, the third, and the fourth, so be it. But what I found interesting is when you mentioned the gambling element. I mean, what's the benefit? Let's just go and play fantasy for a second. What's the benefit of these zebras throwing these games like this? Like, honestly, like, think about this. You're for how much if it was a substantial amount of money, wouldn't we see the swing in the point spread? Wouldn't we get that little sense from Vegas that all of a sudden, the lines move? If it moves 3.5 to 4, it's typically because the quarterback is out. We can agree, right?
Yep.
So, I've had this conversation with guys, with media guys, fellow talkers like myself and players. I mean, do you think there's an aspect of the NFL that's fixed or rigged, or it's just incompetence?
I hate to implement anybody or interrogate anyone, but I do think that somehow, some way, and I bring this up all the time, man. Like, this goes back. We'll get historic here, but I mean, just goes back. You brought up basketball, so obviously you always go to that movie Blue Chips, right? When you think about, and again, it's with point shaving and things of that nature. So it's funny the way you pose that question, like, what is the benefit? So you literally, it's full transparency. I'm sitting here thinking, like, damn, what the hell would be the benefit for these zebras to get these calls wrong? But, it's happening so much that, and again, this is really far fetched, but,
right.
All these guys, I remember Peyton Manning was the first guy ever to admit and talk about fantasy football in a locker room. It was like the forbidden term to never even say it. And one day he came up in a press conference and he's like, all my fantasy owners probably be happy today. These guys now talk openly about it. You have guys like Austin Eckler who have a Yahoo show. You have they talk openly about fantasy football in a negative and a positive way.
Yeah.
These refs definitely 100% are playing a sports betting game. And I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying it's happening because of that, but I'm telling you, man, like, just individually, if there's no accountability on these refs individually. So what's like Rich, if me or you are a ref and we're sitting there and we're going, this call in this game may not swing an entire thing, but it may swing a positive way for me, right, for my parlay or my bet. Maybe you lean towards doing it. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, again, because what are you going to do? Get a slap on the hand?
See,
you're still going to be a referee.
Yeah, the pass interference call was just blatant. You friggin' missed it.
That was terrible.
But when you have what was it, McLaurin lining up, and it's almost as though Go back and watch that. He waited. He waited,
Yes.
and then he got the flag out. So I have a major problem with that. But to your point, I mean, I don't think we're going to see, a Paul Horning, an Alex Karras, an Art Schlichter trying to make bets from
Right.
jail on the payphone. The Ridley thing, I think it opened eyes, but again, I don't know, man. I really think it would have to be so sophisticated or just so blatant where you really throw your hands in the air and say, what? Like, what is going on? And that's when all of a sudden you got to legislate it more. You'd get gripes from the commissioner, gripes from the players union, gripes from the gamblers, gripes from the fans. And when you start to have the prominent talking heads on TV calling the games, right? Like a Nance, like a Musburger, like a Buck, calling them out, then because if you watch that game on Sunday night, they made a point, Tarico and Chris Collingsworth, and it was almost like they were tiptoeing through the tulips
Yep.
until and I forget his name, the one rules expert.
Mike Pereira.
No, and not for Fox. Who's the other one on NBC?
Dean Blandino.
No, he's but in any event, and the name escapes me, and I apologize.
Terry McCauley.
Yes, he was like, no, 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 no. You make that call. It doesn't matter.
Yes. And that's what I was surprised at. Like, because normally, like you said, they're like kind of like hesitant. But that game, man, McCauley he's like, no, that's a terrible call. He's just like, I was like, wow, okay, something's gonna happen now, man. Because that pass interference in the end zone, that just, and again, to your point, it may be that referee saying to himself, man, do I make this? Do I not call it? It's going to affect the game? Like, what do I do? But you listen, that's your job. That's your job. You got to call it. You got to call it.
I don't envy that. I mean, even the instant replay, man, you go back to the 70s and 80s and you look at some of these fumbles and some of these you're like, that's not a fumble. He hit the ground, or that's not a catch.
I know.
Bobbled it and rolled over. And that's, you would think we actually progress in that, but we haven't. All right, let's switch gears for a couple moments. Friday edition BYP, Tony C with me, Rich Quinones. Baseball, these mega deals now, right? Aaron Judge, Correa, Verlander, Turner. I mean, we can go, down the list, right? Machado might opt out of his deal as well, which is correct because he's probably reading the marketplace right now. If you think about it, I put up these numbers. So big league teams have handed out $2.9 billion in finalized contracts to free agents this offseason. The winter spending at this point basically dwarfs each of the last 5 years. So it's kind of like a twofold question for you. Why do you think there's these 10, 11, 12-year mega deals, these types of contracts, and is it good or bad for the game?
I actually think it's really good for the game. I do. I was one of those, and obviously the first one I was really privy to was the Bryce Harper deal, right? Because it is local, it is Philadelphia, and you watch the chase. And I just think it's really funny with Manny Machado. I cannot stand Manny Machado, by the way. Cannot stand him whatsoever. He was always a Manny guy. Manny loves Manny. That's all he gives us, what about. So I chuckle when you say opt out, because I read that too, and I'm like, typical Manny. Typical Manny.
He can give up 150 over the final 5 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but it's just typical of Manny.
I got you. Fair enough.
But I like that it's kind of bringing back a really nice element to the game of baseball. And again, I'm speaking biasly because I've watched it play out here with Bryce Harper. He wanted to lay family roots here. He wanted to be the face of a franchise. I want no trade clause. I want to be here. And I think that speaks volumes to, and again, I don't want to sit here and just glow over Bryce Harper, but I just love the story of, his dad being a union worker and going to work Monday to Friday, and Bryce taking that same kind of attitude after his first stint. He grew up a little bit. He comes over and he's a different player, right? And I love these deals now because now fans don't have to worry about going to the Majestic store and to drop $150 on a jersey and 2 years later it's gone. They can actually ride their guy for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and he's a part of the community. He's part. So I think it's on a game, Rich, that is losing fans because they say the game's too slow and it's not exciting enough. I think this is a huge part of the game by bringing fans back, because now they could trust that their players are going to be there for the long haul.
Funny thing though, I just took a note while you were talking. You said it's good because now you'll be able to have that jersey for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Hence, they never play the life of the contract, right?
True,
You
true.
know, when you
But
think, yeah,
11 years, if I, now that you go 10, 11, 12 years, for 7 or at least 8, that guy's going to be there, right? So
listen, I got you. Yeah, no
yeah,
doubt. I mean, the Correa thing's hilarious because as a
uh,
Yankee fan, I can't say a word because the Yankees have spent for 40, 50 something odd years, right? Now you got Steinbrenner 2.0 in Cohen, and it's hilarious because 315 over 12, but yet San Fran offers them 13 over 350, and then they get a little worried because not the back, an ankle from 2014, and the Mets just swoop in, and that
that's
lineup
really
is
weird.
friggin' loaded.
That's weird. It really that whole story boggles my mind. It does. Like, there's something inside of me that
You think a
makes me
little
think,
cahoots?
yeah, that maybe they really didn't want, they really didn't want to, like, somebody, when they offered a contract, somebody in the organization is like, wait, hold on. Do we really want to do this? And they decided we're going to come up with something. They're going to find something. I mean, come on, man. 2014.
So you're what you're saying is potential buyer's remorse.
Yes.
Okay, he's older, he has had back problems, and you're right. And they figure someone's going to come along, and it's like, hey, you want to get married? Yeah. And then she walks away, and you're like, oh shit, what do I do now? Like,
That's what I'm saying. I mean, there's more than one person making that deal. So I just think that somebody else in that room spoke up and was like, wait a minute, we
yeah.
need to really rethink this.
All right.
And they did, and this is what happened. It's just a crazy scenario, like you said. Then Cohen's just spending crazy money out there. I'm just curious to see if it's all going to work. That's all. I'm just curious to see if it's all going to work.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you need a return on your investment, right? But the money that he's dropping, worth billions and billions of dollars, what the hell does he care?
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
he's burning a hole in his pocket. All right. Lastly, before I let you get out of here. So, all right, we had the battle this week. We had the battle of the reporter versus the player. So, I quite honest, I've never followed that young lady. I can't comment on her work. What I could comment on is I thought what she did and what the other guy did was Bush League, to be quite honest, because I get what you're saying. You want to ask, it was a pivotal point, but they turned the friggin' ball over 5 times. You got Gio Bernard. You don't sit there and come off. Come on, man, you're in PR, you know this, and you're in media. That it was a little aggressive. And then the problem is when you put that out on social media and you try to flex hard and you realize probably not the best look. I've been in a lot of locker rooms over a lot of years, and I've earned the trust of a lot of players. And I can tell you this, if I pulled something like that, me trying to get quotes from these guys or inside information or follow-ups, it ain't happening.
Yeah. I get a couple views on it, right? So,
Right.
and I was very transparent about it. And you're right. Listen, her coming, and I do follow her, but her coming back with the flex, I absolutely love. I do, because, yes, could the whole situation be handled a little differently? Probably. But at the end of the day, a beat reporter, okay, is the hardest job in journalism, in my opinion. Getting that story now more than ever, right? Now more than ever. But the morons and the idiots that sit on Twitter and sit in their mom's basement with computer screens and all of a sudden think they're journalists that have a comment on this thing is the stuff that pisses me off. Like, now all of a sudden, because you do a podcast, okay, you're in a locker room. No, dude, you're not.
Yeah.
You're this is a professional. Okay, this is a professional who's credentialed. Are you? No. So my whole point is she's flexing because whether she's right or wrong, she's at least backing up her craft and backing up what she has laid the groundwork as part of a career. And because some dude who opened up a piece of doublemint one day from the CVS store and he popped on Twitter and see somebody, oh, all of a sudden he wants to write 13 threads about how this person is terrible. I would you never do that. You don't even know. Dude, don't even know what you're talking about. That's the kind of, see, that's what kills me, Rich. That's the one thing that bothers me.
And I'm not trying to split hairs, and it's Jenna Lane, ESPN. She's a national Bucks reporter. And she was trying to get a quote from Gio Bernard, and he was, I think taken by surprise with it because they said, you've been injured all year and this, and I think there's a right way. I guess my thing is when you come out and say, not you per se, but as report is, it's our job to see clarity on what happened, especially in the most pivotal play of the game. I think there's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it. And I guess, again, it's just the era, the age we're in, where everyone wants to get something out there for clicks, for views. I mean, I've had run-in with players. I mean, I'll never forget, I was in the Giants locker room once, and I think, if memory serves me correct, they did beat the Saints. And I don't know if it was Michael Barrow or Keith Hamilton. I said something about the defense, and they literally said, "What the fuck game are you watching?" Now, like, excuse my language, but I'm quoting, right? And it was funny because imagine if that's now and I have a camera and they say that, and, oh, they're just salty they lost. Or maybe they're like the guy that covering the team, or, stringing for radio doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, I think we're very fast to put stuff out there. And then once it's a backlash, then we have to say to ourselves, probably wasn't a good idea. Can't turn our back on it. Now we have to own up to it. And, I bet you some run at the mothership said to her, tweet out an apology, because at the end of the day, you are a national writer that covers a team. So you're going to want that inside track, that information.
Yeah. That's exactly what I mean. That I'll take my Santa hat off and put my PR hat on, and that's the first thing to happen. Internally, their public relations department, they went into crisis management mode right away, and they said, "Okay, well, hold on, we need to clear this up right now," and that's what happened. So let me just say that this final thing on that. So I think I will say that, I have more problem with the way it was handled, not by her, but by the people on the timeline, than actually the instance itself. And I honestly say that. And the reason why I'm saying I commend her, whether she was right or wrong, for actually having a backbone and going back and forth, because I think that everybody, unfortunately, I'm all about everybody has a voice. I get it. But I think some people use that in a negative sense. And even though they have a voice, they don't use it the right way. So, that's kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, listen, I think indirectly too, you mentioned about clicks, and you're right, because we've become accustomed in this culture, and it's not just like me or you, it's these conglomerates, these corporate conglomerates are like, well, what's the impression rate? What's the click rate? Like, first of all, we do all understand that those things can be bought. Just so everybody knows that, right?
Of course they can, but you want to have a sense of credibility and do it.
Exactly.
So I'm going back a lot of years. When I was working for a very small station in Washington Township, it was a brokered station, 1360 WNJC. And I was producing, and I was doing an afternoon show with a gentleman by the name of Tomas Shaw. We would do Barron's Steakhouse with remotes. I would get credentials to go cover the Eagles, the Phillies.
Nice.
And at that time, the Phillies were very accessible. Okay. And it was, hey, we know you're a young guy. If you can try to do 30 to 40 home games, that's great. Okay. I'll never forget, I was covering a series, and I believe they either were playing Houston or the Mets, and they had a bad streak. They were losing. They were not a good team, the Phillies. And we were in the locker room, and back in the day, Bo would have his feet up, and they would have the old school phones. And then Ed Wade was in there. So they were asking Ed Wade's questions. A female reporter said, "Do you still think you deserve to keep your job?" Which was a legit question. I'm not going to name names. There was a gentleman who was prominent in Philly and still is, turned around and said, "Hey, Ed, I apologize for that question." You had to see the beat. Now, this person, his job is a journalist. You had to see the old school beat writers. They look like they wanted to take him outside and just give him one, just the
Give him the
101
mob
lesson.
treatment.
Yeah, because that is a godforsaken, thankless friggin' job.
Yep.
But my point is, imagine that being on camera years ago. Like, that's why the other thing is, and I know I'm straying a little bit, it's so absurd how what we do, it's so catty. It's worse than like schoolgirls.
Yep.
It's okay to give credit to someone for doing something.
Yes.
It's okay to say good spot, good interview, good luck. My God, some of these guys, especially in this area, they fucking act like it's a sign of weakness.
Yep.
Just give people their just due, man.
Yeah. What's wrong with that? Like, what's wrong with saying, well, we're all in this together, and man, that dude's really perfected his craft, or wow, that was a great interview, or oh wow, that's a great segment. Instead, it's always like, well, why couldn't I get that interview? Or wait, why can't I have that segment? Or what can I do better? Like, why?
It's high school. It's
right.
Shit. And it's
I
probably
agree,
just
man.
not in the East Coast. It's probably all over the place. Just give people their just due. So
Yes.
again, kind of come back around to your point. I get she was doing her job. I just always believe if you're going to deal with athletes, once you do something to lose their trust, especially in a locker room, now all of a sudden he sits there and his teammates go, "What's that about? Man, don't talk to that guy anymore. Don't give him anything." That kind of hurts you a little bit. Now, it wasn't a major thing. It blows over,
Right.
kumbaya, and everyone goes about their business. But yeah, it's become so petty. I mean, look,
It's
man, there's
annoying,
enough
man.
pieces of the pie. There's so many outlets, so many networks.
Yes.
And by the way, and I tell people too, if you don't like it, tough shit.
Yeah.
Create your own content.
Yes. I mean, we live in a tremendous world, Rich. Like we have the ability. I mean, look, man, this is my home, man.
Yeah.
Like this is my house. Like I built this down here to be able to do this.
Yeah.
Like I'm blessed.
Yeah.
Like why am I getting made? Like I don't understand why.
Because it's on your wife's credit card. That's why.
Well, yeah, we definitely got to lay claim to the wife for that, man. She's the interior decorator. But nah, man, listen, I've said it all the time. Like I love. And maybe I'm in the minority here, but like I know people, like I've had people that had started with me that were maybe 10 years younger. I'm 44 years old. So, I have people that start younger and like I help them and kind of like not say mentor, but hey, listen, man, try this. And when I see them get successful, like I'm like, yo, that's amazing, man. Like, I'm not, I'm not trying to slide in your DMs to get on your success. I'm just happy. Like, that's great. Like, what's wrong with that?
I think there are a lot in our business.
It's terrible.
Ton of insecurity.
Oh, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Everybody keeps thinking, like, is he going to, wait, he may be better than me, or that may be better than mine. Or, oh my God, is he going to take, like, there's like,
he's going to take my spot. She's going to take my spot. I'm going to get Wally pipped. That's how people think. They get complacent. They get comfortable. But I'm telling you, the way I see things, you have to constantly pivot, change, evolve.
Yep.
And you got to be creative, man. I mean,
yes.
that's how it is. But no, man, that's good stuff, brother. So what do you, before I let you get out of here, what do you got going on this weekend? You got any shows that you're going to be doing?
No, listen, man, I'm off, bro.
Like,
I'm in the minority here, man. Like I said, listen, I like family time and I got my parents coming up. I got, we're just like tonight, we're just hanging out, watching movies. Tomorrow we do like a Christmas spread for Christmas Eve. And like, I'm good. Like, I don't need, see you Monday. I'm back. You know what I mean? So, and then the postseason is going to be crazy. I'll be on Sirius every weekend.
Nice.
On the shows post game, and I think we're doing post games on Saturdays from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., which will be interesting.
Good.
But again, I'm here, so right. So
Yeah.
Which is a great thing. And then on a couple Saturdays from 5 to 8 and a couple Sundays from 11 to 1. So again, just give me a follow at Cutillo 23. I'll be everywhere.
By the way, so settle this bet in 30 seconds. I'm
Yeah.
so tired of the friggin' is Die Hard a Christmas movie. You know what? I got one better for you. Lethal Weapon is more of a Christmas movie than Die Hard. How about that as a hot take?
Yeah, bro. I'm not with the Die Hard as a Christmas movie.
But
Sorry.
no, but Lethal Weapon, that is your perfect, man.
Yes.
Come on.
Man, Lethal Weapon, man. You went Danny Glover, Mel Gibson, man. That's
87. What do you want me to do?
yeah. I like it. I like it. I'm with you. I will say I'm a It's a Wonderful Life guy. So
Well,
let's throw it out
who
there.
isn't? I mean, come on now. You know,
Come
every
on, Jimmy
time
Stewart all
yeah,
day.
the-
Man.
yeah,
Come on,
we-
man. It's black
yeah.
and white.
Yeah,
Come
hey,
on, man.
listen, you know how long it takes a working man to make $5,000? I'm with you, man. I got last night I was watching that garbage of the Jets game, so I
Oh,
recorded
me too.
SNL because I enjoy watching that. I laugh my ass off. But yeah, I'll do a little It's a Wonderful Life, a little hot toddy, and then that'll be pretty much it.
Me too, brother. It'll be great, man. But yo, happy holidays to you and the family, man. And I
appreciate
appreciate
it, man.
all the love, man.
All
Seriously.
right, bro. Be good, man. Thank you so much.